Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Divided Films, the podcast where we talk about movies that audiences and critics disagree on. My name is JJ, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Keith.
Hello!
And joining us again on the podcast is the very talented Melanie Rivera Waldman. Welcome back, Mel.
Thanks for having me. Hello, hello, hello.
It's always a joy having you on, Mel.
Love being here.
Getting your funny insights into all these movies. So today, it's getting warmer. We're approaching the summertime, so one can help but think of shark movies. And so for today's Divided Film, we're discussing the 2016 shark movie, The Shallows, starring Blake Lively. This movie falls into the category of having a fresh score with critics and a rotten score with audiences. And Rotten Tomatoes, 78% of the critics approved, but only 59% of audiences approved, so just shy of a fresh audience score. And the critics' consensus, lean and solidly crafted, The Shallows transcends tired shark attack tropes with nasty thrills and a powerful performance from Blake Lively. So, the thing about the consensus here that I'm not entirely sure I agree about is if this movie transcends shark attack tropes. Because, at times I feel like this movie is trying to be a different kind of shark attack movie. It's, at times trying to be sleek. At times it's trying to subvert those shark attack cliches. But then other times it's relying on them. And I think ultimately it turns into a conventional shark movie towards the end, which is a little disappointing. I do think it's a good movie. I enjoyed it, but, I think it could have been a lot better, and I was a little disappointed just because I feel like there was a lot of potential there. But this is my first time watching it. What about you, Mel?
This was my first time watching it. I just have to point out the fact that y'all chose the Shark Bite movie with your one, guest who's an amputee. Sorry.
I had she doesn't lose the leg.
I'm having
that did not occur to me at all.
No, it's totally fine.
We'll cancel ourselves. I'm very sorry.
I just thought it was funny. No, it gives me like the Bethany Hamilton flashbacks though, because I did see Soul Surfer. I was a fan of Soul Surfer, and I kind of wasn't sure how that would compare. Like, you think of shark movies, you think of Jaws. I mean, I think of Soul Surfer sometimes, but definitely Jaws first. So I was wondering, like, where between the two of those this might land. I definitely was interested to see if this was going to be based on a true story, which I don't think it was. But we'll get into that. No, it wasn't. Yeah, we'll get into it. But yeah, I'd never seen it before this. This was my first time.
What did you have any ideas of what this movie was going to be when you're going into it, and like what was your expectations versus what it turned out to be for you?
Absolutely. I think that going into it, I was expecting that thriller kind of sense of just somebody being live bait for a shark, even though, like, if you know a little bit about oceanography, it's not really how sharks operate, is to be out.
Have a vendetta?
Yeah, like to be so aggressive, not to spoil it, but, just to have that, like, that thought was in my mind, like, okay, is this going to be like a bunch of sharks? Is this one shark? How is this going to go down? Usually I stay away from thrillers. This was like somewhere between a thriller and a surf movie for me, which I actually enjoyed that part of it. It actually gave me something to watch. And, like, it was beautiful the way that they captured it. I think they said it was not Tijuana where they filmed. Like, they said it was Tijuana, but it was somewhere else.
Yeah, someone mentions Tijuana, but then I think Blake Lively says, like, "Oh, I'm not in Tijuana." I don't know. That was like a throwaway line, I guess. So I'm not sure exactly where this takes place, but yeah, I agree. Like, one of the comments from the audiences is how sharks don't stalk out one prey. They're opportunists, and I kind of get a sense that once the shark, spoiler alert, eats a couple of the other people who go surfing in there, then it might stick around a little while to see if there's more opportunity for food. But for it to stalk out Blake Lively is a little ridiculous. I feel like that's another shark attack trope is that, in these movies, they like to make you think that sharks go out of their way to attack humans. When, again, in actuality, it's like whatever food is nearby, it's going to get. It's not like sharks and humans are natural enemies or anything. So that's, again, like another cliche I'm seeing in this movie that I thought it would try to move past. What about you, Keith? What was your history? If this also is a first time viewing for you?
No, I've seen this before, and I probably watched it in like the best setting one could. I just watched it like a Saturday matinee, like not in the theater. I just like watched it at our apartment back in the day. Uh, you must have been out, and I for an hour and a half you were out. But yeah, and I just like it engages me enough to go like, okay, this is pretty goofy, but it's also like it made me nostalgic for like these kind of movies that I used to see in middle school and high school, Friday and the weekend. Just like there are thrillers that come out that it's it served its. I like movies like this. Someone who is trapped in an area and has to get out.
Yeah,
I have a soft spot for those kind of movies, and the list goes on. Her Blake's husband did a great one. Ryan Reynolds, I should say. Her husband.
her nameless husband.
Her nameless husband did a great one called Buried, and it's about Ryan Reynolds trapped in a coffin and he has to get out. He's being buried alive, and it's just like, and it holds your attention for an hour and a half. And
Right.
I know, like when I watch this again, and reading the comments, I'm like, oh, the shark needs a reason to attack. Like I'm not angry at it's goofy. I will 100% it's goofy, but I don't need like a marine biologist explaining to me like why this cannot happen. It's like if bees or alligators like attack. I don't need like
Right, it's a creature feature, basically.
it's a creature feature, but they tried not to make it a creature feature. That the director was very adamant about that.
Right, the focus is more on Blake Lively. I was reading that it's a movie about like survival, right? Because they established,
Yeah, it's a survivor thriller.
right, and I think that there's a compelling backstory there why she goes to this secluded beach, even though it is very unwise for her to do so by herself. Right, she goes to this beach because it's the beach that her mom went to when she was pregnant with her, and but everything about her getting there has red flags. Like she goes to this secluded beach by herself, and when the guy who drives her is like, "How are you going to get back?" She goes, "Uber." It's like, "Uber?
Who?
You're in the."
He says who?
He's like, "Who's Uber?" But it's like, Uber, you're in the middle of nowhere. How is anyone going to get? You're probably not even going to get a signal out there.
The rates on that must be through the roof.
He won't even tell her the name of where they are. She says, "What is the name of this beach?" Nothing.
Yeah, she doesn't even know. Are you going to get a
silence.
GPS signal? Yeah, probably not. So it's got one of those kind of situations too, where it's like, oh no, everything about this is just you're putting yourself in danger there. But again,
surfer's rule is you never surf alone. Like that's a pretty big thing that's known is like you. And she just was like, I don't care. I grew up by the beach. Maybe that's just something I know. Or you're told
it's a wise rule.
Right.
I mean,
not in Tijuana,
or wherever the hell
in
they
Mexico.
were.
Yeah, somewhere in Mexico, wherever that is in Mexico, that's not a rule. But when she first goes out there's two other surfers, so it's like, oh, okay, she's not totally by herself. But when those two surfers go back and they're like, hey, it's getting like, she goes, no, I'm gonna stay out for a little while longer. It's like, what? It's like getting dark, the sun's about to set, and you're all by yourself in the middle of nowhere. Why? At least ask those guys for a ride back or something. I don't know.
It seemed like they bonded too while they were surfing. Like they seemed like very kind people. Although
they were nice guys. It could have been worse. But then there was that one other random character. I don't even know how he gets there. The drunk guy.
Yeah, he like
Where
waves
and
then comes into the water.
Like Blake Lively spends the first night there. It's only a night. It's like, I guess, a 24-hour situation. Yeah. When she's on the reef or on the rock there, in the early hours of the next day, there's all of a sudden a drunk guy passed out on the beach holding a bottle of tequila, and it's like, how did that guy stumble onto this secluded beach? There's no town or homes nearby, And I don't know what this guy's problem was, because he's stealing her stuff, and then he decides to go into the ocean to steal her surfboard, and then he gets attacked.
His dismemberment, you mean?
Well, he's bitten in half. He gets bitten, and he's crawling out of there, bitten at the waist. It reminded me of that line in Jaws when Quint is telling the story of the USS Indianapolis.
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, Chief, he'd been bitten in half at the waist." It's like, yeah, that's from Jaws. There's also another. I mean, that's not really a reference to Jaws, but made me think of it.
There were many of those, though. There were plenty of references specifically.
Well, when she has a smile you son of a bitch moment when she fires the flare gun at the shark. She says like "fuck you."
Fuck you. I wish it was "fuck off," just to give it a little bit of Succession into it. But
yeah.
You're finished.
Ooh, that would be something. But
womp 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 womp, and then it goes down with the flare. Womp womp, like one of the seagulls just womp womp.
I did have to read why the water went on fire. I
realized. I thought about that.
I was like confused, like why did the whole water go on fire? And then I read, because the whale carcass was secreting some sort of
gases
oil, and that's why you saw that like oily thing in the ocean there. But I had to like put two and two together. I don't know that whales secrete oils when they're decomposing in the ocean, and I guess now I do. So thanks, Shallows.
Well, that's why they were hunted.
Yes. Well, if I'm Blake Lively, if I'm surfing and I see this whale carcass, I'm gonna get the heck out of there. That's gonna attract a shark.
I'm Nancy.
Carlos, Charlie.
Nice to meet you, Charlie.
Nice to meet you.
Lo siento por mi español. Did high school?
You were in the school?
No. I mean, I was in medical school, but we didn't have Spanish there, just cadavers. I'll shut up now.
Okay, dark in a few hours, so...
Oh, I never surf at night.
And how are you getting out from here?
Uber.
Who's Uber?
Never mind. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you again for taking me here.
I love in movies like this, and this one especially, I love the little Chekhov guns dialogue in the beginning. And if you don't know what a Chekhov gun is, it's like when you write about like, hey, that's an interesting looking mirror, Mel, and then that mirror comes into play later on in the story. And it's just like in this one, it's like, hey, the surfers are just like, hey, this is a great beach, except for that piece of coral over there that if you hurt it, like, if you touch it, it stings. Like, it's like, thank you. If someone, like, I know it's something that no one would say, but it's almost as the audience, you're just like, thank you. I will remember that. Or I would say the one subtle way, like, I mean, there's the obvious way with the coral, and the subtle way is like her dad, who had the easiest job paycheck ever, just going like, you're not in med school anymore. Like, what are you doing with your life? It's like, okay, she knows how to stitch herself up. She's a character of intelligence, and I appreciated that.
Well, that to me was actually a very compelling scene, because it seemed to be a very realistically painful moment that she's having to do this rudimentary stitching of her very gruesome looking wound. I mean, I thought that wound looked very, I guess, I don't know, realistic to me, though all the blood is coming out and everything. That did make me squirm a bit. I was like, oof. Although a probably even more realistic shark bite would be like, I don't know, maybe you would see some bone or something. Like, yeah, that shark doesn't make
skin flap hanging off or something. Something pretty gruesome there.
Something a lot more graphic than that. But even what you do see, I think, is still, pretty shuddering to see. So I think at least that was, somewhat effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I also really loved, you were talking about like things in the beginning that kind of come into play later. That beginning shot of that little boy playing soccer on the beach, to me immediately was just like Jaws. Like Jaws is one person alone on the beach who finds a dead body, except this person finds what's a GoPro. And to me it was really lovely because it ended up being like a virtual message in a bottle, because you later find out how that comes into play.
Right. Like, I thought it was like a little bit of a clever setup.
I really enjoyed that.
You find the GoPro, in the beginning, all you see is the footage of the actual shark. So then when you see the guy later on with the GoPro helmet, he's a goner. But yeah, also the fact that she was able to get her message out there. It did turn into like a little like found footage territory when she's also recording herself crying and stuff on this GoPro. I'm like, what?
I
I
appreciate it
don't.
that it's like if no one finds me, it's like a message in a bottle. Like I
Yeah,
did my best.
absolutely. I
It
love.
wasn't a found footage movie. Like
No, no, no.
no, but those movies. I think that genre is very rare and almost dead.
Yeah,
Horror
hopefully
wise.
we're gonna talk about a found footage movie later on, but oh yeah, that's a bit bottom of the barrel. But in this case, yeah, like I'm glad for the most part, it's not one of those kind of movies. It's I think that there are some beautiful sweeping shots, like Mel mentioned in the beginning during these surfing
Oh
sequences.
yeah.
I thought where the movie I thought was gonna go would be like this more minimalist. Can I say that right? Minimal movie where you have these kind of patient shots, these overhead shots of the ocean, of the beach, of the waves. And I think also in other moments of the movie, you get these just shots of nature, like the little crabs getting swept up. And I thought there was going to be more of this motif of just like the forces of nature. And the shark is a part of that. And I was kind of, wishing the movie would lean into that a little bit more because it's a beautiful location they're filming in. And I like any sort of story or movie that has the sort of thing where nature is beautiful, but it's also very dangerous. And I think you can maybe encapsulate that in the shot where she's surfing, but then you see the shadow of the shark in the wave, which I also thought was an effective moment. Again, that's like a good lesson to learn from Jaws is, less is more with the shark. So when you see just glimpses, a shadow, a fin, like that's all fine. And that's a good way to build tension. At the end of the movie, when it's all shark and it's a very CGI looking shark, that's when you
Oh,
lose me. It was goofy at
it
the
was
end.
bad. It was a bad shark.
Well, you're not
If
gonna
you,
use Bruce from Jaws. Like
No, but
but come
I don't know.
on.
It,
I understand exactly what you mean about like the CGI. But I will say that I was very impressed with the directing. I realized looking at this guy's work, I want to say get his name right, Hawame Colette Sarah. Like he's kind of the master at these kind of movie, like the the weekend teenager family flick. Like just going through his resume, House of Wax, Orphan, a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
Liam Neeson movies, and then because of the success of this movie, and it was a success,
That's
he got
great.
Jungle Cruise, and he's doing the DC movie Black Adam with The Rock. Like he is, I'm very happy. I don't think this movie. He kind of captured a stylistic B movie.
yeah, it's it's a very like tight thriller, and I think Keith, when you mention these sort of situation movies where someone's stuck in one place, usually those are like a tight 80-90 minute movie, which is fine. I mentioned this before in another episode, but it's the kind of movie my dad calls like a predicament movie, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's a great. I love that.
they're stuck in
Look
a
at us
pickle.
now. Look at
Stuck
us
in a
The
pickle
now.
whole,
movie.
I think of movies like Phone Booth or Panic
Phone booth.
Room, right? They're just like stuck in like one place the whole time.
This reminded
Uh,
me of a great one that came out like 1 or 2 years later, called it's with alligators instead of no. I see you. Mel is laughing at me.
it's
Uh,
hard to take alligators seriously.
Crawl. It's called Crawl, and it's stars. And I could also be butchering
I
her
would
name.
never laugh at you.
Kaya Scodelario. British skins, British actress, and she is, in the middle of a Louisiana hurricane. She has to go to her father, played by Barry Pepper, and
Oh,
he is trapped underneath, like in the shelter, and the house is flooding, and in comes the
yeah,
two
I
alligators.
remember.
It's really good.
I remember seeing trailers for that. Now that you mention it,
Highly
so
recommend.
okay, put it on the list there. Another creature feature. I guess yeah. Any idea, any creature can be done well. Alligator, shark, what have you.
Sharknado.
Sharknado. I was gonna mention too later, like we can bring it up now because there are, there's tons of shark movies, but few of them are good, right? So I would say this movie is definitely above the the median line of quality you get from shark movies.
Yeah.
I don't know if you maybe say it's like, maybe that good or whatever, however you want to rate this movie. But I would say when you compare it to so many other shark movies, it definitely looks a lot better in comparison when you look at, say, like the Jaws sequels or
Deep Blue Sea.
those are all Deep Blue Sea is bad, but at least it's entertaining the whole way through because it's so crazy.
I was surprised audiences were not that, because I was curious, because I was wondering how many famous shark movies are out there, and of course you got Jaws, which is like miles ahead. Not like the style like that launched a blockbuster and style vision of Steven Spielberg's career, and then you got like all the other movies. But Deep Blue Sea is not like we could not do it on this podcast. Surprisingly, I thought.
Yeah, it's like almost, but not quite divided. It has rotten scores on both sides. But again, at least that one is entertaining to watch. Maybe have like, it's so bad, it's good.
It's
sort
been
of viewing.
memed to like. It's been memed to infinity. Like
probably one of the most
know it because of the memes.
Right. Well, also the Samuel L. Jackson kill in that movie is one of the most famous shark kills in any shark movie when he's giving the speech and then it's just kind of like killed mid speech. So you have that one. This one though in particular, The Shallows, the movie at hand, actually also reminded me of Open Water, another predicament movie where these characters are stuck, and there's like they're in that one they're surrounded by a bunch of sharks. But I think where Open Water disappoints is that it doesn't really pay off the tension that it builds throughout most of the movie. It kind of ends in a whimper. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
They die, right?
They die, but it's like yeah, they die in that one, and it's like they die off camera too. I think they just like one like kind of gets bitten and dies overnight, and the other one just kind of like goes underwater.
Yeah, it's based off a true story, I believe. I remember that was also like it came out at the like weekend, 8th grade, going to the movies.
Yeah.
That one is also divided, but I feel like there's even less that happens in that movie, so it wasn't even really worth discussing. There's just
it just made me angry about how like people actually like forgot these people.
Right. And I think that one also takes place in another country, so I don't know. It kind of reinforces like some negative stereotypes about how if you go to like another country like Mexico or the somewhere in the Caribbean, there's like no regulations.
No, actually, that's a true story that happened to my parents. They went to a beach. I feel like it was in Barbados. There was no lifeguards. They were going to swim with the turtles on their own to do their own thing, bought their own snorkels and things, and they got pulled out by the tide and were like freaking out. Like, oh, we are on this beach. I went to like a zip line thing with my brother by the cruise line, and just like thinking about that gave me a flashback. Like, oh wait,
the zip line was sketchy.
No,
too,
the zip line was like we were on a cruise, so like we were on a cruise bus, so like we were on a planned excursion. Whereas my parents were like, we're gonna go do and swim the turtles. No, that was the worst decision they could have done. Whereas ours was fine.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I would like look for like a group excursion.
I know. I was like, we're never doing that again. You're never doing that again.
Yeah, there's too many scary stories like that.
The ocean is it's that unpredictable, the ocean. And I think that's even scarier than the sharks. What they were saying in the film too, in this one was like, oh, you better watch the tide. You better watch the reef. Like it was all of these elements outside of it just being Bruce. They even said there's no sharks on this beach. That's what they say.
Right, but like
no sharks come here.
But then there's like, that's another thing with any shark movies. Like, oh, we never have sharks here. It's like, well, there's one right there. What do you say about that?
But they do build a lot of tension in this one with like knowing that a shark is coming. And you guys know, like I watch everything with accessibility features, so like closed captions, sometimes audio captioning. The closed captioning was so scary in this because it was like no sound, little eerie music, and then it said the words water bubbles, and it was the spookiest thing I've ever seen. I was like, oh my god. And then I'm thinking like whoever is audio describing for this is probably like laughing their ass off. She's stranded and alone on a whale carcass. Atop the whale carcass, the shark attacks from beneath, and like being like really dramatic. If you ever listen to those things, like they are crazy like that. The people get really into it, especially on Disney Plus. They get really into that kind of thing.
Well, I'm really curious now to check those out.
Yeah, definitely do. It gets annoying if like you're not used to it, but like if you're there to like actually experience it, it is really cool to see also like what plot points in a movie like the storytellers are trying to get across to you, like what is important for you to pay attention to, whereas you're like, oh look, two seagulls, like that have nothing to
Right.
do with anything.
Well, that's a good point.
That's the best character
but
in
that's
the whole
one
movie.
seagull.
The
That's
seagull.
one seagull. I'm saying like if you see them flying off, like no, the one seagull though, that was the main character,
Steven Seagal, which again I think kind of that kind of undermined, I think, some of the style and tension this movie was going for. It was just kind of dumb.
No! No, there's a shark! Wait, it's okay, just don't go! No, there's a shark! Stop! No!
Well, in the one of my research, I found that in the original script, she was talking to that seagull throughout the whole damn movie, like enough for them to be like, we're gonna roll it back a lot.
Yeah,
like she was just like narrating her thoughts. And it was a really good decision, but she was just narrating like, I have to do something, Mr. Seagull. Like
through this movie, I think actually my favorite part about it was the writing of the character Nancy, because even from the beginning, she's in the car speaking to somebody who doesn't speak English, and she straight up says, "I'll shut up now." Like Blake Lively's comedic timing in this to me was amazing, which was surprising because this is not a totally funny movie, but she through the movie is mostly talking to herself. Like that's
right.
That is what goes on, and it's funny. It just transfers to the seagull. Like, well, you're here to witness this, aren't you? Like,
right. I'm glad they pulled that back a bit because I don't think I'd be able to take Blake Lively as seriously, but I think she is good in this because she's a very charming actor. She's got this award-winning smile, which they used a lot in Gossip Girl. Like she's just very captivating.
He had to throw in the Gossip Girl. Thank you, JJ.
Well, come on. How can you mention Blake Lively without bringing up Gossip Girl?
I'm so proud of you.
I actually just finished. I just finished that series like a few months ago, so it's not that far off in my memory.
Oh, it's so good.
But that's I think one of her biggest appeals that makes her such a star is this smile that she has. And so you see it in, again, like a lot of the surfing sequences in the beginning, before things turn south, she's got this, like, she's living, but then when it gets more dramatic and she's like in moments of like real pain, I think she really sells it. And I really bought the suffering that she's going through, especially you mentioned the coral reef, because I think that's another good touch is just how sharp and painful those can be, because you can't see and, you can step on any of these sharp reefs, and so she really hurts herself multiple times in the movie. She gets really scratched up and banged up, so I thought that was a more realistic touch to it. And again, nature can be beautiful, but it's very dangerous, and it's not just the shark that's a danger, it's also these reefs that can really cause her some damage.
I have been there. I've kicked a reef before, and it is not fun. It is not pretty. I was in Thailand and like wore a garbage bag over my foot to get home because it was bleeding so much. Like it's really. But talking about like bleeding and everything, like they really did a great job of depicting like what it takes to take care of yourself medically in those instances. And I think I know that personally from just traumatic limb loss and living my life. I'm no nurse, but everything that they presented was accurate, from like her wiggling her toes, and like she was encouraging her toes, come on, wiggle, move. And to me, I'm like, she's doing that because if she knew she couldn't move her fingers, that would be cause for like the need for amputation in the future. So doing that allowed her to keep going. It was really, really interesting. Like you wouldn't know that.
She earned her happy ending.
Yeah.
She earned her happy ending. No, I said to my like this
She
character goes through the shit, and then you're kind of like when the shark dies, you're kind of like, yeah, like she earned it. Like she earned her happy ending is what
I don't think she needed to earn it by like outsmarting the shark and having this battle.
This is the smartest shark outside of the smart sharks in
it's an angsty shark.
It has a vendetta.
Yeah. It's a pissed off shark for no reason.
Shark for vendetta.
Yeah. But I think she earns her survival from the way she takes care of herself, and all again just like the suffering that she is she shows a lot of strength in the movie. And again, I think it might have been more effective if she was able maybe to like just swim away. Maybe the shark just went away after a while and she's able to get, it's something a little more subtle. You don't have to like battle the shark and, have this kind of, again, very conventional climactic fight with it in order to win and survive. If it's truly a survival movie, then I think the pain and the suffering alone, and her determination to overcome that, I think that's enough for a win for her to earn her getting out of that situation. Not this sort of thing where, like, she lets the anchor drag her down, so the shark chases her, and then the shark is going so fast it impales itself on, like that. To me, I'm like, I felt like I was watching another movie at that point.
Yeah, it was very out of place. A lot of the shark interactions were like that.
But I can look. I agree with you, and I'm not. But you can see, like, Mr. Studio Hollywood going, like, we gotta end on something. Like, this shark has to be killed. We gotta get the kids in the seats. We gotta get the couples in the, like, you gotta like, especially for a movie like this. Like, I'm not condemning or condoning. I'm just saying, like, with a movie like this, that's gonna happen, and I would be shocked if it ended on a more art house, like, maybe if Robert Eggers made this movie, but I knew, like, I knew she's not going, like, full on stabby stat, like, I'm gonna battle the shark, but she used her wits. But I could totally see the studios accept. It's like, no, you're gonna end on the action.
Yeah, it's another thing that kind of bugged me too in that climactic ending is that she goes through, like, these jellyfish and everything, and it seems like she can see perfectly underwater, right? And she's able to, like, from the like the poles on the bottom of the ocean floor to, like, the jellyfish to, like, the underneath side of the buoy. I'm like, if you have no goggles and you're underwater in the ocean, you can't see anything.
Salt water is the worst.
It hurts. She has her eyes wide open and she can see so well. That's like a general, not even just a shark movie trope. I feel like it's like a general movie trope of characters underwater and they can see perfectly. And so that was, like, also kind of getting on my nerves a bit. I mean, you say, like, oh, you'd be surprised if it had that art house ending, but I feel like maybe not an art house, but I feel like it was setting itself up for something more subversive than what we got.
Yeah, or like there's, like, a big ship that comes through and she sets off the flare and you think that ship is I thought that was the ending. I thought that ship was coming to save her. Like that, I was like, oh, Deus Ex Machina, hello. But it wasn't even that. Like, it definitely kept me guessing as to, like, how this whole thing was going to end. And I think I appreciated it for that. Because like all of us, we're like, oh, that means this is going to happen. Or like, oh, that's going to come back into play. Like, we all really think about
the flare not working was a nice touch.
That was great. Like, that was right in the water. That worked for me.
Yeah, those were duds. Those flares. Yeah, I agree. It's like, in that moment, you kind of have this emotional roller coaster too with the character, because she really thinks when she sees people on the shore, when she sees these ships, she's so elated. She thinks, this is it, I'm surviving, and it's like, nope. She not just the physical pain, but also this, like, emotional, like, when will I get out of this? There's like you could see her too. I think that's what Blake Lively also brings to this performance, is how much she gets worn down mentally as she's there for, like, over 24 hours as, like, the water is rising again, which is another good moment of tension because you could see the water getting higher and higher. She has less and less ground. And so, I think if anything, I think Blake Lively is probably the best part of this movie. And because it's tough to be in one of these, again, predicament movies where you're in, like, one place for, like, the majority of the film
with one actor. With one actor.
It's an acting challenge. It's like
it is an acting challenge.
You're like, Tom Hanks did Castaway, mm-hmm. Matt Damon did The Martian. The Martian. It's always, like, whether it's on the A, Studio A movie scale or even, like, the B kind of movie scale, it's an acting challenge because you have to sell it. Mm-hmm. And I have not seen Gossip Girl. I'm nothing against it. I'm sure she's very nice. I know her from Accepted, and I know she's a mom of 3, so she's not really acting that much. But the roles that I've kind of seen trailers for, it seems like she is in that she's trying to, like, expand her range.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she's
and I give her credit for that. And this is a very good way to do it. And she does a very good job.
Yeah. I mean, you know, again, it's like, I don't know how long it would have taken to make this movie, but at least, you know, it was a physical challenge for her, I could tell.
Oh yeah.
And you're right. It's something unexpected for her, just something more, you know, something with a darker tone, since we know her from more lighthearted material.
Yeah.
And, you know, because she is, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, for me actually, it's the opposite of that, but it's because specifically in she was in Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and she of the four girls, like you know, they're all types. She was the sporty one who goes like to Egypt and goes on a dig. Like she's rugged, like, and she's known for that in some of her work. So for me, I was like, this girl, she's about to get down and dirty. Like something's about to happen. And like even before watching this, knew that that was how it's going to be because I saw that like Gossip Girl. Like she's like the it girl, sure, like the party queen. But I was expecting that. Like whoever saw this definitely saw her in Sisterhood first. I think.
Well, that's one maybe that I need to check out just to get, you know, a better idea of her range, because now this movie is piquing my interest more in
she's great.
Seeing more from her. I mean, also like in Gossip Girl too, there's this sort of struggle that she has in that where she has to maintain the image of the all-American girl, but at the same time she has a lot of struggles with you know, different addictions, you know, the stress and pressure of living that glamorous life. So there is, I think she has demonstrated that sort of dichotomy of, you know, the all-American girl, but there's way more underneath. And yeah, she definitely has a good range there.
She can get gritty. I love her.
Absolutely.
I just don't want you guys to worry, and I don't want you to feel, you know, bad or anything, because I love you so much. And I miss you more than I ever even realized I could.
Dad, I gotta get off this rock soon.
But I want you to know I'm gonna fight. I am. Just like she taught us.
You know what's another thing too this movie doesn't do is flashbacks. I was expecting maybe some flashbacks. But all the backstory,
the sounds. There were just sounds of like her mom speaking, nothing visually.
Right. That's like a good example of a more minimal take, because I think that's sometimes what some of these other predicament movies will do to maybe fill up the runtime, is have some flashbacks to add to the backstory and again give us maybe like a little something more. But in this movie they don't do that. So I was kind of happy that it's, you know, it's really sticking to where it is. You don't really leave that beach.
Oh, this movie also, you just reminded me. This movie, it came out in 2016. I do believe this was the first movie, at least for me, that showed texting in a new way. Like it showed those bubbles in the screens. I'd never seen that in a movie before. Like back in the day, people just used to text and then show you, like in a screen, like this is what you're writing.
You would have an actual shot of
zoom in on the camera. But and granted, this isn't like the biggest mind blown, but that's how everybody in movies and TV do that now. But that I do declare, or at least for me, I do think Shallows was the first.
Maybe. I mean, I have to check. One of the first.
Fairly recent phenomenon.
Yeah.
If that is a phenomenon.
Sorry. I had to. But I definitely, there were a lot of things too about the movie that I didn't like, and there was one specific one, and I'm going to just say a couple words about it. I thought that the end credits ruined the entire movie for me for one reason only. Sia. So overdone. It is a Sia song. Sia plays, and it's like this movie about strength and overcoming, but like also I work in disability advocacy, and Sia did a lot to piss the disability community off when she came out with Sing. So like it knocked a couple points off for me after that. I actually enjoyed this movie and all the way up until then, and I was like, I'm done. I'm never watching this again. Goodbye.
Wow.
You cut it off right before the credits.
You know what's interesting?
Cut it off right before the credits.
Right before that, and then we're good.
Great movie, horrible credits. I think
I never got that review before. Like
but you know, it's interesting because that's usually such like considered like an inconsequential thing from the movie makers. Like you just throw on any song, I guess.
Love this. Actually, no, I don't. I don't love that at all.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a good. If anything, the takeaway is, no part of a movie should be taken for granted.
And
You
honestly,
know?
like this was in 2016 that this movie was made, and what the controversy with Sia was within the last 2 years. So it's
Mm.
time does that. It's kind of
And she
like
probably filmed that movie. If I read anything about that movie, she probably filmed it in 2016 because it took so budget problems and whatever
oh
to get
wow.
made.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, this you also mentioned in your notes, Keith, that this movie was like the script had been floating around for a while, and it just
it
took some
feels
time.
like a blacklist, like the I don't want to. The guy does not really have a Wikipedia. There's really not that much to research on, but the writer, just to give him Anthony Jasinski, us Polish people cannot. Anyway, he wrote this script and like probably when he was very young, and I don't know, he put it on the blacklist and it lasted for like a couple years, and a studio producer found it. Like I don't know, it's like well, it definitely feels like a script that's been floating around for a while.
I could see that.
Yeah, because it to me, again, it's like an idea movie, like maybe like an elevator pitch kind of movie, and I can see it maybe like an aspiring writer. It's like one of their first attempts at like a feature,
Yeah,
because it is such like a simplistic idea. You're not going to like a million different places. You're not juggling a ton of characters or plots. It's very straightforward and again very minimal.
these movies will make you
So
money too. Like this is like if you're, I'm not Mr. Business, but if you're like starting a production company, uh, make horror movies or make thrillers. Doesn't
right,
matter on
right.
quality, but if you make them for like $1 million, teens will go see it over like the weekend. And it'll make like 50. It's not always a guaranteed success, but it's work.
You don't need as high of returns for
Mm-hmm.
success, but yeah, the other thing is too, there is a love of shark content in America. I mean,
Oh
again,
yeah.
ever since Jaws, and not only have we gotten all these shark movies over the years, but Discovery Channel does Shark Week. People
Mm-hmm.
love these like documentaries on sharks and whatnot. So it's just if you make another shark movie, and it's been a while since the last one, people will go out and see it. Again, it's a summertime movie. It's a quick watch. So everything about it seems like it would make sense if you're Mr. Business, which
Yeah.
I'm
And for
Mr.
me too,
Studio
like
Hollywood.
Mr. Studio. For me too, like this is a thriller that I would go see, and I don't like thrillers, but the draw for me would be like Lively. Whereas it'd be like a couples kind of thing. He's in it for the thriller, and she's in it because she loves Gossip Girl or Traveling Pants,
sure,
all of it.
yeah, yeah.
A
I
little
mean,
bit of something for
also
everybody.
exactly, and I think that the thrills in this, you get some violence, but not really that much, and the first half of the movie, at least, you're just getting a very like serene, almost like cerebral experience of just like people out in the ocean and just embracing nature, and it's very calm in the beginning, almost like dreadfully so, because again, you go into it knowing it's a shark
Yeah,
movie, so
yeah.
there is a bit of tension like when the shark is going to show up, but at the same time you can kind of just like enjoy these just beautifully shot sequences. And also like there was another effect I kind of liked during those surfing sequences, especially when Blake Lively is like paddling on her surfboard, like she's laying on it, where the camera is going in and out of the water. And I found that to be like really serene,
Mm.
this like audio effect of you hearing the underwater and the surface like you would if you're really treading water. And to me, like that was kind of setting up the setting like really really well, like the environment of where we are. And I just, again, I found that kind of like so peaceful in a way. Again, like this
Weirdly
establishing,
peaceful.
it was so naturalistic that I don't think I've seen that in too many other movies, that sort of like in and out of the water effect. But what you do get too, going back to some of the cliches this movie's doing, is the shark POV. Like the
Mm.
camera underwater moving around, and it goes up to a person, and at times it's a fake out, but by the end of the movie it's like it really is the shark coming at her. And again, like Jaws did it, and so all these other shark movies have to do it, unfortunately.
The fake out. The fake out
Yeah.
shot.
I have one last question. The shark in Jaws had a vendetta too, right? Like that was an abnormal
Yes.
shark. More like I'm not comparing in some way, but like the shark that was doing some non-sharky things.
Well, especially when they're on the boat, like the shark is like, the shark jumps on the boat for crying out loud. Like that's, that shark really had it out for them. Yeah, that shark was like very strategic taking down that boat, and then, well,
they
of
did
course,
say they would need a bigger one. They did say they would need a bigger boat, and they weren't wrong.
We need a bigger
Chief
seagull.
Brody was not wrong. She needed a bigger rock in this one, but in terms of sharks having vendettas, there actually is Jaws 4, Jaws the Revenge, is literally the shark wants revenge against Chief Brody's family. Are you familiar with the fourth Jaws movie, Mel?
I am not, as you can tell by my face. I think I've seen the second.
It's a
one.
fun movie.
I hadn't seen the original Jaws, believe it or not, till my junior year of college. So very recently. But I was studying communications and film and all that, so I was like, oh, I have to watch this movie. Like, I can't not watch this movie. And I'm glad I did. I'm obsessed with it. I would watch it any day it's on.
It's an excellent movie. It's a perfect film.
It is.
It's one of the most watchable movies, and I always like to have it on during 4th of July.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate the sequels were so poor. I mean, I find the second one kind of boring. And then the third one is like ludicrous. It's 3D and the effects are terrible. But then the fourth one is so ludicrous. The shark wants revenge against Chief Brody's family because of him killing sharks in the first two movies. Like, how does the shark know who Chief Brody's family members are, where to find them, what they look like?
And it
follows them.
Like across, to a different ocean, across the other side of the country.
Yeah, like in the beginning, like they're in Amity, which is like, I guess, New England or something. There's a shark, and then they go to the Bahamas, and the shark follows them to the Bahamas. It goes all the way down the eastern seaboard and catches up with them. It is so freaking crazy.
That's
and
trippy. Too trippy for me.
It makes no sense. And what's crazy too is in all 4 Jaws movies, the shark explodes. By the fourth movie, it explodes for no reason.
You gotta give them what they want. They come for the explosion. The exploding shark.
The exploding sharks.
I'm not a fan of killing. I don't like encouraging shark killing. They're an endangered species, people. So if you do encounter one, try not to explode it.
Unless they have a vendetta. Unless it's either you or it.
Unless they have it out for your family for some reason. Just totally crazy. I will say, before we get into our final scores here, as crazy as Jaws the Revenge is, or Sharknado, I think the most insane premise for a shark movie it's a sci-fi movie, Ghost Shark. That is
I'd never
the most
heard of that.
It's an impossible premise to overcome for the characters. This is the idea of Ghost Shark.
Sounds
It's obviously it's the ghost of a shark that it can attack and kill people, but it can attack and kill you if you're touching any water of any kind. So that includes a pool, the shower, drinking a glass of water. It can come out and kill you. It makes no sense.
The best way to watch that movie is with JJ doing audio visual commentary.
Hey, all right.
I love you more, short crop. I'll be home soon.
Mom's beach, right?
Not everyone can be helped.
I don't want you to feel, bad or anything.
I gotta go now. I'll see you later.
I never found out.
I'm gonna fight just like she taught us.
Okay, guys, so we've talked up and down about The Shallows and I guess the shark genre in general, but I think we can now get into our final scores for The Shallows. So, Mel, why don't you start us off? What is your final thoughts and your percentage score for The Shallows?
Okay, cool. I would say if I were rating this, I'm gonna do this on a couple different levels. I love this film as a surf film. Like in the first half of the movie, it just was flawless. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen, so that for me got a very high score. But as I said, I did take some points off. minus 10 to 20 points. I'm going to say negative 20 points off of what my score was. So I'm going to give it a 40%.
Oh, wow. Okay, 40%.
And it's all because of Sia.
Yeah, just this goes to show.
I don't love cheap thrills.
No,
I thought
no,
that
that's
song
fair.
was Cheap Pills for the longest time.
Shark thrills. Shark thrills.
All right, so 40% from Mel, and no, hey, that's why we bring you on here to get the real, honest opinions. So, Keith, what about you? Where are you standing?
When it comes to like in a pickle movies, there are really good ones, and I'm not talking about like the A-list kinds. I'm talking about like the B movie kinds, and I would highly suggest Crawl, which is, I would say, kind of the Shallows walked so Crawl could run. I know.
So Crawl could crawl. You should have thought of that before you started saying it.
But it's this movie is elevated so much by Blake Lively's performance and the directing. How I'm gonna grade it is just like, I'm not going out of my way to watch it, and it's fine with a small case F. It's better than mediocre, but it's fine. So if it was on, I'd be like, I'm happy. I enjoyed it. It's not worth getting mad over, even with its mistakes. I'm gonna give it a 65.
Yeah,
65.
That's what my score would have been close to had I not had Sia.
If you just cut off right before the credits, it would have been a completely different movie for you.
It would have been a 60% for me. It would have been there. I agree with you, Keith. That's what I'm saying.
Man, the most damning credits I've ever heard of.
Sorry, I'm drinking water too. I'm not even like minimal.
I'm trying to think of other credits. I've never like
my genuine.
I understand. I understand it, and we've talked about it before. I understand where you're coming from.
I have heard crazier reasons to not like a movie, so fair enough.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, for me, like, I'm glad I saw it once. I don't know if I'll seek it out again, or really, again, maybe like bits and pieces if it's on TV. But I'm ultimately disappointed because I thought we were getting this sleek new kind of shark movie, and it ended up being more of a typical shark movie. Worth viewing once, I would say. So for that, I would give it a 60%, just on that fresh line for me. It's just good enough for once, but I don't think really so much after that. So what is our average score there, Keith?
It is a 55.
55%. So that is a rotten score. So therefore, I officially declare that On the Shallows, we are siding with the audience. I think audiences generally give these sort of predicament movies lower scores anyway. I feel like audiences get a little more impatient than critics. I think critics are willing to, kind of sit in one setting longer than a typical movie.
A lot of the audience was like, "This is not how a shark acts," and I'm like, "Oh God."
Which, like,
what do you want, people? You write a shark movie.
That's kind of arbitrary too. You kind of need, like, I guess, a crazy shark to make a shark movie work. I don't know.
Crazy shark.
It's a grandpa shark. He's gone off his rocker.
I think they did research and they said, like, it's a female shark. They're more aggressive. I'm like, hey, a shark is a shark. That's a shark with a vendetta is beyond gender.
It's beyond logic. Belle, we always have like the most fun conversations when you're on the podcast with us. So thank you again for joining us.
Thanks guys for having me. I missed you.
It's always a blast seeing you,
and it's even better being on it. So I love it as
thank
a
you for
and as a
coming
participant.
on.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. This has been a lot of fun, and if everyone out there, thanks for listening as always, and look out for more Divided Film soon.
Bye.